I play with photographs and video on a weekly basis, and I love it. And so in addition to just simply introducing myself, I wanted to share with you a little bit about what I do on a daily or weekly basis, the stuff that really interests me about digital photography. As far as equipment is concerned for this course, first and foremost, you will have to have access to Adobe Photoshop, the CS5 version, on a regular basis. I don't need to know how you have access to that program on a regular basis, but you need to have access to that program because all of the lessons that come from the book are focused around that specific program. You will also have to have some way to capture an image. Many times people hold a digital camera out in front of themselves and they see a big screen, and that's the image that they're looking at, what they see on the screen. And they still have all of this noise, all of this peripheral information that comes in. In my world, that hurts rather than helps the image process. So those of you who use your cell phone by holding it up, clicking an image, holding your digital camera out in front of you, that's great, and that works really well. But what I encourage you to do is to put a sheet over you. So the only thing that you see is that image that's on your camera. And to share with you a couple of bits and pieces where magic has happened for me, and by using the term magic, it's a place where I am looking through the lens and I get lost looking through the lens, where I have to remind myself, Tyler, you're taking photographs. Let's keep on track here, where I lose myself in something of substantial interest that I'm looking at. And currently I work with an infinity box. And an infinity box is a box that I made myself of mirrors, and it's 2 feet by 2 feet. And so it has all of these reflective properties. And because I was a math teacher, I'm into mathematical properties. And I try to communicate sometimes overtly and sometimes very subtly the mathematical world that we live in, visually speaking. And I'm just going to throw up some photos here, and these are images that I have scattered around my apartment. And actually this is the backdrop that you see behind me to my door. And these images weren't created digitally. I did these in a dark room. So I will say to you that my first allegiance to photography is taking great care in constructing the image before I press the shutter release button, that button that captures that still image. And so I've gone from throwing paint into the infinity box to food coloring. I've put people in the box. It's been a lot of fun. I usually take 200 to 300 photographs and then look at them on my computer through Photoshop. And I will say that I dismiss about 50% of them for one reason or another. Usually based upon certain preferences or certain ideas that I think I'm working with. And of course, throughout this course, you will develop preferences and you will develop ideas that you're trying to communicate visually. I have worked with digital images in a conceptual context, meaning that I had an idea and I wanted to communicate it visually or experiment with it. A lot of my photography and image making is just, it focuses on experimentation. the whole, what if I try this? What if I do this? Is it possible to communicate identity through an image? Is it possible to undo an identity through an image? In my most recent undertaking in digital photography was trying to undo Ansel Adams' identity. And you'll become familiar with many photographers throughout this course. Even though this course focuses on becoming an expert at using Adobe Photoshop, you will be inundated, or I should say have the choice to be inundated, with historical figures of photography and some current figures of photography. But Ansel Adams historically has been one of the great landscape masters. And I'd say he's probably the photographer who is most well known throughout at least the United States. Anyhow, the question that I worked with was, how much information in one of his images can I remove until it's no longer an Ansel Adams photograph? And if I were to try this in the darkroom, it would have been a painstaking process. But part of the beauty of Photoshop is you can try things, experiment with ideas, and the time that's consumed through experimental processes is minimal. And that's just, for me, that's kind of the essence of Photoshop. And the more you play with the program, the more you experiment with it, the easier it becomes to just try things without spending a lot of time, but also trying things knowing what the end result will be. We've now reached a point historically in an image-making world where our boundaries are limitless. We can begin to create environments that aren't real. We can manipulate space. Right now, we have to question what is real when we look at an image. We've been aware as a Western culture for years that people change airbrush models in magazines to enhance what we think is beauty, or to enhance something to its perfect state. And now we've started to begin to question, what is perfection? What does perfection look like? Is it context specific? Is it specific to you? And that's one of the beauties of Photoshop, is we can begin to create our own perfections. We get to play with the real world and bring it towards or closer to our own ideologies of perhaps what beauty is or what ugliness is. Where it's very easy to bring a sense of ourself into the image with just a little bit of tinkering at the computer. Hopefully all of you will have your own preference for environments where you get to experiment, where you get to play, where you get to kind of fuel the questions that will drive your image making processes, where you get to answer the questions that will be answered by your images that you come up with. And I really hope that, one, you develop an expertise for Photoshop, an appreciation of what it can do, and two, that you begin to appreciate and take seriously the images that you create for yourself. And I don't think images will be taken seriously by other people until you take them seriously yourself. And that's also part of the magic. So have fun.